Oh, it's on here.
Okay, we're going to call to order the Police Facility Oversight Committee meeting on October 10th, 2023, 1 p.m. in the Ginny Sealing Room. Item number 2, approval of minutes. Were there any questions or anything on the minutes? Okay, all in favor, say aye for the minutes. There's no...
Aye. Move to approve the minutes.
Or you want to make a motion first? Okay.
Move to that we approve the minutes.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, item number 3, discussion of possible action on adding of public appearances for non-agenda items to allow for public comment. Meaning like for during this meeting, at the beginning or maybe at the end, with people or the committee like to have public comment, or that ability for the public to actually speak if they're here.
If they're here, yeah, I would
Okay,
go for it.
okay. At the beginning or the end?
I don't have a preference.
I
just feel they're here and they wanna.
I would say at the end, make sure that we get everything in, because we don't want to keep these guys any longer than we have to.
That makes sense.
Okay, and then people must fill out a citizen registration form for all agenda items wishing to speak on and be called on by the chairperson to speak. It'll be a 3-minute time limit, and we just got to be consistent for every meeting. Okay, going to item number 4, agenda items, review of site plan and floor plans. Who's going to take that one? Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna just roll through, I think there's 2 agenda items that we'll just roll through as far as the architectural plans and elevations and such.
Okay, and that's going to be the presentation of the exterior building?
Yep,
okay.
Exactly. So just starting out, there we go. Just to show the overall site plan and where we are today. You can kind of see up there, we further developed it, so clearly identified where public parking is versus staff parking, where the building is situated on the site. We have had input from city staff as well as we're going to be going to the Plan Commission sometime in November. But I think Deanna has said that, generally this aligns with what she'd like to see on the site. So, any questions as far as what we're showing here?
The entrances, I see the one Lacey Road and then.
So on Lacey Road, that would be going into the Sallyport, which would be going into the municipal lockup area. So that would be a gated entry to get into the Sallyport, and then further down into the secured staff parking. So that staff parking is actually down a level from the main entrance.
Could you describe the secured fence? Like, usually what it would it look like?
To be determined. Typically, it would be 6 foot high or so open picket, but it could be more solid in places depending on which direction the city wants to go, as well as the police department. So where we are in design right now, the materiality of things has not been decided. So those things are still up in the air.
Because it is public facing to Lacey, that if this is to be a community building, to make sure that it seems welcoming.
Yeah, so the main public entry is directly across Research Park Drive from the library. So that, as you'll see further into our massing and visioning, that will be kind of the prominent entry point for the public, and you'll be able to see that pretty clearly. You can also see that there's public parking. We tried to accommodate as close to the building as possible without impacting that corner and the urban feel of that intersection, as well as the safety and security at the front of the building there. All right. So I'll move quickly into floor plans. Won't dwell too much on these, just to give you an idea. So this is that lower level. This will be the staff entry level. So you see evidence processing and storage to the left there. The squad garage is that gray area in the center, and then tactical training to the right. So really all of the kind of behind the scenes stuff that doesn't necessarily warrant daylight or windows or anything. No questions here.
You say this is entry, first
No,
floor?
this is staff entry, so this is lower level.
Lower level.
So that back parking lot is what will be at the same grade as
It's
this.
like walkout basement.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so these walls here to the west and to the north are what will be visible from that staff parking area, but nowhere else. Everything else will be below grade.
So for your evidence room there, I can't see dimensions or anything, but that's gonna be able to have all the freezers and
Yeah,
fuming hoods and all this.
yes, so, and we have different zones for that depending on what the use is. Police have said what they want all patrol to access versus only the evidence technicians. So there'll be different levels of security in there, as well as storage for bulk items, storage for things that need to be cold or frozen, as well as more general evidence storage as well. Okay. So on to, there we go. So this is that main floor level. The biggest thing that I want to highlight here is in that kind of very light tan color, that is the public lobby. So you'll see in the elevation what that main entry looks like, and that is the most welcoming part of the building, being open and transparent, as well as having access to those multi-purpose community rooms just to the north of the lobby, and then the different colors around this floor represent different departments. So you've got records here, dispatch in the green, patrol in the kind of yellowish color, municipal lockup in the purple, and then training and locker room areas in the blue.
What's that area that you mentioned, patrol?
Yeah, so that's where all the sergeants would be, all the lieutenants will have.
Cubicles,
Yeah,
offices?
so sergeants will be in cubicles, lieutenants will be in a shared office with individual workstations. So we tried to maximize efficiency for their space, but also make it functional for them for what they have to do day in and day out. It also accommodates the anticipated growth for the community. So there are, day one, there will be some empty desks in there, but I get the feeling that Chief and his staff will quickly fill those. The other piece of that is we really wanted to centrally locate patrol to make it as accessible to all staff on the secured side.
But Chief, I got a question for you. So with your staffing plan, and will this take care of that and beyond?
Yes, this is, we gave the numbers projecting out 20 years, what the numbers would be, so it would accommodate it. If I may add, the purpose, and we brought this up when you're talking about rooms, it looks like individual rooms. This is a grand area. So when you have sergeants or where you have detectives, it's an area where they have their own workspace, but it's a room, a general room. It's not offices. The office space is more for management and upper management that would need that piece. For for those of you who are in law enforcement, you understand the shift commander or the officer in charge. There will be eventually 3 lieutenants, 1 for each shift, that will be in command of the shift. And when they're working, they would be in a more visible area open to the entire law enforcement group for that shift, whether it be detectives or, more importantly, the sergeants and the police officers to report. That's where you see the OIC room.
So the sergeant's area being open like that actually came out of a couple of tours that we took, was that last weekend, 2 weekends ago?
Yes.
Where chief and his staff got to see firsthand some newer police stations and saw how well it worked to have the sergeants in that open area, because originally we had it in 2 separate rooms. Coming back from those tours, they decided, hey, let's look at it as one big space, and that's what this latest iteration of the plan is showing.
Would that area also encompass area for the officers to do work?
Yeah, so there are report writing stations as well as 2 rooms for quiet dictation or if they have any kind of individual things they have to do without distraction. There are 2 rooms where they can close the door for that. As far as individual workstations, patrol will not have individual workstations. What we find is once you get to this size department and larger, it's almost impossible to accommodate everyone at a desk.
Where are the interview rooms?
So this,
Stands. Andrew, can you blow us up somehow?
yeah. And do it. Oh. Bear with me.
Okay, there we go.
So what you'll see here is you've got your public lobby here, and direct access from the public lobby is a secured door into a secured interview suite where you'll see a soft interview room as well as a hard interview room, toilet for use for either of those. So this whole area will be semi-secure, and if the need arises, as well as having staff access, you have this secure door here. But if the need arises where you've got someone in the hard interview room that you say, you know what, we need to bring you into another level of security, they walk them down the hallway through the security vestibule, and then there's hardened interview rooms in the municipal lockup as well.
I see there were 4 or 5 holding cells.
There are a total of 4 individual cells and then 1 larger cell if the need were to be where you have multiple people on a cuff bench.
Do you have a recording room for recording interview?
All of it will be recorded, video and audio. So 100% of what happens in those rooms will be video and audio recorded.
I think she's asking, is there like a room that you're watching those interviews from, right? Is that what you're asking?
Well, yeah.
So the way the technology works is the police department will be able to access that from any workstation in the department. But there are also specific spaces up in the detective suite where you can go and have that directly wired.
And that will be private, like a private room, not
Yeah.
that everybody can walk by and see the.
Right, yeah, so are there any other questions on this floor? I can go up to the next floor. Nope. All right, so then up 1 more level, we've got the command staff on one side, investigations on the other, small staff break area here. Again, you'll see this open balcony to the public lobby below. This is public access, and then there's the secured access points. You see 1, 2, 3 here. So chief's able to bring folks up for meetings up to the chief's conference room, and then the various offices that they have up there for command staff and their assistants. But the question you were asking earlier was about more private spaces for viewing those interviews. So there's a cybercrime room, which would double as ICAC, which is Internet Crimes Against Children. So that room needs to be private. There's very limited access there. But then there's also this crime analyst room where those folks would be able to, in a more private setting, view as well. But again, what I was saying earlier is the technology is available where you can bring up any of that footage either live or recorded in the detective suite itself.
It's basically on the software. So even if I had the software on my laptop, I can watch it from home. But the interview rooms are private, where, not like the county jail where if you're interviewing somebody, there's a window there and people can walk through and see who the investigator is talking to. You wouldn't be able to do that here, but if a supervisor or another detective wanted to monitor the interview, they could monitor it on the laptop.
And the access would be limited or regulated?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, because they have certain requirements through CGIS to make sure that they're complying with all the regulations and their certifications. Questions on the upper level?
Where's the briefing room for the office?
That is down on the first floor. So this roll call room,
Okay,
set up in classroom style. So they're able to go in, have their beginning of shift roll call, and then right in their path of travel is their mailboxes as well as charging area for all of their tasers, their body cams, etc. So they're really able to come out of roll call, grab and go, head down the stairs and get into their vehicles.
could you also, the evidence room, because I know right now it's a very small room, what can we expect out of that room?
It's much larger, so it's an entire suite. There's 3 desks available. So there's a sergeant's office as well as 2 workstations for property and evidence technicians. This zone here is what I was talking about that's available to all officers, where you'll have your evidence processing, your pass-through lockers, and then through another door is the evidence lab where all your fuming hood, your drying cabinets, et cetera, would all be in there. But that's, again, open to all patrol. And then the storage itself, we're planning for high-density storage, which basically will more than double the amount of storage you have in a smaller square footage. So this is accounting for what evidence they have now as well as future growth. All right, so let's get through these.
Before we move on, it's David Brousseau here speaking for the Development Review Committee. Could we go back to the site plan for just a moment?
Sure.
Great. I just want to raise 2 items that I'm sure will come up at the Development Review. One is the landscape plan. When you get to it, we're really going to be looking at how the landscape presents the building to the streets, to both streets. That's going to be a big issue. And I would add how the landscaping can screen the perimeter security fence so that it's not particularly apparent from the street. That's going to be probably an item of discussion. The other one is when you get to your civil plan, how the stormwater is going to be managed on this site in order to protect the waterway and prevent stormwater in a major rain event from flowing into the Nine Springs waterway there. So those would be 2 items that I'm sure will come up just to give you an FYI ahead of time.
Yeah, and our landscape architect and civil engineer is very familiar with all of the requirements here. So we've already been talking with them about how to accommodate everything we need to.
Great. And generally, I think the siding is looking really, really promising, and we'll probably want to have a look at how much of the site is paved there. But in general, I think the way you've sided is working very well.
Great.
Could you go back to see the range, what's been proposed and what's gonna look like?
So the tactical training, it really allows for multi-use. So yes, it's set up for a firing range with all the ballistic panels and everything. But they're able to create scenarios in this room as well. We've got an overhead door here to bring in vehicles. So they're able to train coming out of their vehicle, what happens in any given scenario. And they're also able to use this, it's not your traditional firing range that you'd see if you went to a commercial range or whatever, where they've got different lanes. This is a wide open space. The dotted lines here are really just to delineate, to give a sense to the police department how wide this training bay is, so that they understand how many people they'll be able to train at any given time.
Okay, so that's a big space.
Yes.
And then, but it could be used as a firing.
Yeah, so it's set up as a firing range, but it's also has the ability to be scenario training and others.
And also it communicate with the one that we saw in Illinois, that they are connected to the garage, so they can
Yes.
bring cars to the
Exactly.
training.
Yep.
There's also a prop storage room, so they bring in different scenario type stored in there as well. So that's set up for training as well.
So when you use it as a firing range, how many lanes can you have in there?
It's 10.
Chief, are we still at 10?
We're at 10, and
Yeah.
because it's an open area, you still say 10 lanes, but it's not realistic to 10 lanes. Once you spread out and you do the current style training, which is more movement, you're gonna move, you're not gonna have 10 people side by side when you're training with moving for cover or de-escalating, or what is that called, retreating to a position of cover. When you're doing those things, you wouldn't have 10 people standing next to each other. You'd probably have 4 people in a area of 10, up to 4 to 5 people in an area of 10 spaces. Because it's wide open, you're gonna have things in there as big as a squad, or things that you can do a lot in that room by putting things in there that make it look like you're walking in an apartment corridor, a hallway, and where you can move forward, move backwards, all safely, but to give you scenarios that will make you think before you make the decision you use deadly force, and that's the purpose of using it. So although some of us are gonna be calling it a range, and we'll be calling it a scenario room.
But you would have times when it's just gonna be for practicing shooting.
Absolutely.
And at that time, you can accommodate up to 10 people.
Yes, yes.
Any other questions on the floor plans?
Just show kind of the front lobby, I'm just curious how it faces to the public. So would people be accessing through the record specialist side?
So
If they were
this
to come
is,
in and look for a person?
this room right here is the entry vestibule. So that's your main entry into the building for all the public.
Is that divider on the street there is gonna be eliminated? That's a little tight there, no? Right across,
You're talking about the median?
the entry to on the side of the building, not on Lacey Road, on Research Park, I think, right across from the library?
You're talking about the median in between the two lanes?
Yes, yes.
No, that'll stay. I think the intent there is to limit speeds.
So if someone were to come in the door and look for a person, where would they be looking?
To the left there, that record specialist area, that will be your big transaction window. So those folks sitting here will have direct visibility to everybody coming in and out of the building there. And then what we've talked about here is the potential for an after-hours service window. So when staffing is very limited, records shuts down after business hours, there's still a workstation up front here that if you come into that vestibule, there's gonna be a window that we can pull a shade up and somebody will be right there for you. Other questions on the plan?
The fitness slash that, I don't know if you have the, well, the,
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so we've got another alternate plan that's actually the preferred plan after our meeting this morning. But Chief has expressed interest in having a combined fitness and DAT room rather than having two separate rooms. It just allows for more flexibility as well as allowing for better use of the space. Chief was talking earlier about using the fitness area to get your heart rate up and then jumping into the DAT room so that you're creating a more real world scenario as opposed to just a group of 10 or 12 going into the DAT room and going, all right, here's the exercises we're gonna do today.
So how many people can fit into the conference rooms?
Between the two rooms, we're set up for 100 classroom style. So when you split the two rooms, you've got possibility of having two rooms of 50.
all those are similar to the library conference.
Yeah, I think it's probably equivalent to the current library. In the main room we were in before, is that 100 probably in that before? That's probably 100 space, isn't it probably?
I would have some. It was set up in that just horseshoe style, so I don't remember exactly the dimensions there.
But it's equivalent to, somewhat equivalent to the library. I'm not sure the exact square footage, but you know, that same type of room.
Yeah,
Except the main meeting room upstairs.
All right. So next, like I said, we're gonna jump right to the next agenda item here in the same presentation. Wanted to talk a little bit about the process to get to the massing that I'm gonna show you in a minute. So we did a visioning workshop with staff a month ago, where we showed different precedent images, some being city of Fitchburg, others being just similar use buildings around the country to get an understanding of what the city of Fitchburg wants to see in this building and not necessarily saying, here's your design, that's it. So obviously, right across the street is the library, so we have to take cues from that library, not necessarily copy what's there, but make sure that they're working in concert with one another. So that was one of the contextual images we took a look at. Looking further around Fitchburg Center, there's some of these Promega buildings, so you'll see some of the cues that we took there as far as some of these subtle curves, the balance of materials. You've got glass, metal, brick, you know, making sure all those materials are working together and not necessarily one dominating. Again, more images from Promega. This is the multi-use building across the street. This one, staff did not necessarily see as something to pull from, but at the same time, understanding you've got the prominence at the corner and different cues like that. Talking about corner prominence, the building we're sitting in now. So all of these buildings were taken into account. We spread a dozen or so images out on a table and everybody got green dots and red dots. Red dots were things, you know, I don't like the look of that building, we're gonna stay away from that. Green dots were, you know, yeah, we love it and here's why. So out of that exercise, we then came to, all right, what features are we seeing that we wanna be consistent with as far as all the green dots? Because we stacked all those together and then went one by one and had staff give their input on, all right, why did you put the green dot? So that's why you start to see some of these recurring themes, whether it's the roof, the horizontal banding, the palette, which we'll touch on in future iterations. We'll get further into what the color and the texture and the materiality of the building will be. And then out of all of that, we came up with a series of goals for the design of this building. So some examples of different buildings from around the country, not necessarily in Fitchburg, but again, pulling cues from these buildings as well. And then we get to Fitchburg Police Services Facility. So we have a couple of different options to show you here. What you're seeing on the right here in both of them, that's the existing library. On the left, you're seeing the new police services facility. So you'll see there's more of a squared edge option and then more of a rounded edge option. And there's a few different themes that we can pull from one to the other. So that's what we're calling option one, which is the more squared edge. So as you can see, that big area in the middle, having a very open lobby, lots of transparency there, lots of natural light. That'll be a 2-story space. So once you're up on that second floor balcony, you'll be able to look down to the lobby below. The other thing that we're exploring is the use of the roof over the tactical training. So that roof is somewhat exposed almost at ground level. So we're talking about having that as a breakout space in some of that multi-purpose area so that you could have some outdoor seating, as well as looking at some green roof options there. And that's something that we carried through all the different iterations. So then here's option one shown with an exercise we just did earlier today where we pulled some elements from option two into option one. So having some more horizontal banding, giving an area for some signage, as well as projecting the vestibule out a bit to give that a little more prominence to say, hey, here's the front entry to the building, kind of announcing it even beyond the large volume in the middle. And then here's option two with the more rounded elements. So again, this kind of softens the look and the feel of the building. It's not to say that every corner is a round edge, but you'll see, more of the public-facing areas rounding that, softening, making it feel like it's more welcoming than a hard line in the corner of the building.
I have a question just, and refresh my memory. All the windows, all the glass that I see, on the right side, the lower 3 windows, those windows are in those community room for those community?
Right side.
No, so this is,
No, the right,
Oh.
starting on the right side, those
Yes.
3 would be the community room,
correct.
and then is that another window on the corner one?
Yeah, so that would be in the fitness area.
The fitness area, and then the top right above that,
That's where your administration offices and conference room are.
okay, and then when we come to the left,
So then up here would be where the investigation suite is. Your dispatch center would be this window here, and then these two would be in the records area.
and then on the side, it's,
The various offices, marching down from dispatch into patrol here. So that lieutenant's office would get a window as well as the sergeant's work area would get a window, so lots of natural light into those spaces. And you'll see these further developed as the design progresses. We're talking about what window heights we want, so there's security and limited visibility depending on what's behind it. So this is kind of that first pass at, all right, what is the general mass of the building gonna look like and how do the windows start to shape up on that mass? And then the last one here, this came out of conversations with the police department and with staff on what elements they liked out of certain options. And so what we did here was we have a larger projection over the front entry, some more of the horizontal banding. So out of our conversation earlier today, we took some notes on likes and dislikes for this. We talked about reducing the amount of horizontal banding at the front here, giving more natural light, as well as reducing the overall depth of this entry canopy so that we don't have this large column at the front of the building. So those were just some of the comments we heard back from staff today.
So option 3 is what staff liked.
So option 3 was kind of a play off of option 2 with some additional comments from staff as far as can we incorporate some of these things. So now we've got comments on those comments and we're able to refine this option a little further, as well as taking a look at the other options as well. Option 1 was one that we talked about potential there. So kind of developing one step further each of these options to say.
I guess we'd like to get your comments today too, what your
Yes.
thoughts are between these three options, right?
Are there any savings with one design or the other, or they're pretty much the same?
Well, so if Jared were to be in charge, he definitely want to go with the more linear option here, just because introducing those curves does add some complexity to the construction, so obviously that's gonna add some cost. But again, it's up to you as the city to decide, all right, where do we wanna spend our money? Do we want it to be inside, or do we want it to be how this building is looking public facing?
But it can still look good outfit
Oh,
with
there's-
orange, just so.
Yeah, no, there's no reason that this option wouldn't be perfectly suitable. It's just a matter of preference, really.
So which one is gonna be the color outside? It's not gonna be white, isn't it?
No, like I said, this is just the initial massing of the building to get it.
Yeah, really.
So that's
That's
why,
not even painted.
that's why I showed the different
Okay.
precedents earlier to show you kind of the color palette we'd be
Okay.
pulling from.
Yeah, the idea is we pull the color, we're trying to match colors
Yeah,
with
yeah,
Fitchburg Center, but the other thing is too, is the window sizes are gonna change a little bit too on this
Yes.
from these are probably bigger what you're actually gonna end up seeing.
Yeah, based on comments we got back from our meeting this morning, there will be further iterations of these before we even start to talk about materials.
It's kind of, let's get your input before we take it to the
Do you
next.
have the, is it the front side? Do you have the back side?
At this point, no.
No?
So
Okay.
we developed
Oh, okay.
these two elevations first
Okay.
to make sure that we're understanding what the city wants in the building design before we start to develop further the other sides of the building.
So kind of what you pick on this side, you probably would mirror on the back side in terms of, if you do some rounding, you probably do it on the back side probably. You're not gonna have two different looks. So this made sense to start with this, because this is really what you're gonna see. This is the front.
I'm just gonna say, I keep thinking about something and it's safety. And it's a standalone building,
Mhm.
as, not what we have now. And it's a lovely location, very open. So I keep thinking of the safety to the building and people inside the building. And I know you mentioned that before, but it's.
Yeah, so there will be a lot more development of what the site looks like, to David's point earlier, what those plantings would look like, how we're presenting those plantings, because we don't want to just put a bunch of steel bollards in front of this lovely looking building.
Right.
So that'll be taken care of with some concrete planters to make sure that somebody can't ram a car through the front of the building. Paul brought it up earlier, looking at starting to adjust some of those window sizes so that there's more masonry that, staff can duck and cover behind masonry if it really goes south. Another thing we'll look at is strategically, where do we want to have any bullet resistance in that glass? So those are all considerations as we develop the design further.
In the inside, would they're also thinking about bullet resistant materials?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so our standard detail on that records window, you'll see bullet resistant glass everywhere. I mean, that's kind of what everybody does, but we'll take it a step further and there will be Kevlar panels in the wall there as well, so that, yeah, the glass is bullet resistant, but what about the drywall? So,
Is this option one, or is this like the option 1A that incorporates the other elements?
So this is kind of 1A where you've got more of the horizontal banding. The initial option one is this one where it's a lot more glass. So really, at this point, that's the only difference between the two. But
And the door, the vestibule.
yes, but based on comments we got today, we're gonna refine both options to get to another level, which is why we want your input today as well.
So what's option, what's between option 2 and 3 then?
So the original option 2 that we presented a month ago was really just these rounded edges, and we got some feedback on the depth of the overhang here, as well as some other minor tweaks, the banding and then the vestibule. So really the biggest difference are the much larger overhang, which we're gonna try and find a balance between this depth and the depth we're showing in option 1, what makes the most sense for this option, as well as opening some of this glass area up a little more so that we're getting rid of some of the solid banding and really just having it over the entry door here.
This might be different than what I had a comment earlier, so I'm starting to like actually the upper banding now.
The upper banding?
Yeah.
Okay. I know Chief wants to get as much natural light in there as possible, so.
So that's just my thought.
East and south facing?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Get a lot of light.
You're gonna lie, because you still get that upper row, you'll be surprised how much light you get in there.
And the energy efficient features that you have, is that come later or is that gonna be something part of?
Yes, so that's actually part of what we want to talk about with the next agenda item, so,
I guess before we go to the next, is that the next?
yeah, so
Yeah. Next one.
if we want to talk about,
Sustainability.
Well, first, I guess, is there any kind of, what's the kind of overall preference of that on the
Yeah.
committee, I guess, first, before we go on to the next?
so between 1, 2, 3, or are there elements of each that you like?
Could you just go some? for the-
Absolutely.
Sorry.
And
Let's
let
see
me,
our day go on.
Let me enlarge this a little bit so that.
That's nice.
So we'll start with, so there's what it would look like on the site versus the square edge versus the rounded edge. And then here's that original option 1 with the square edge. We'll call it 1A with the entry vestibule projecting out as well as the lower horizontal band. Option 2 introduces the rounded edges. And option 3 takes the entry in a different direction with the columns, the overhang, and the additional banding.
Wow.
And which one you like?
Which one do I like?
And if you like elements from all of them, that's perfectly fine too. That's where we're at in design right now, is pulling from different places to say, all right, here's what's actually gonna work for this building.
I like the round edges of the top, but I wonder if you could because the glass goes from the floor, ground to the
You're talking
top.
about this one?
Yeah, I do like that. I don't know if you can break that glass so it's not so, big.
Yeah.
Even though I like it, but just, I don't know, that will save money or something.
Yeah, that takes it from being a curtain wall to storefront.
Gives you a place for signage too?
Yeah.
For a band?
Mhm. Mhm.
I guess I like the option 1A, the lower band.
Okay.
There's a place for signage, it's got the prominent vestibule on it.
Do you
Just
like,
Aesthetically, like I said, like the the more squared off look.
Okay.
The round almost reminds me of Art Deco, almost like you go down like Miami, you know, you
Yeah.
have round,
Yeah.
It's
round
pretty.
curves and stuff.
Mhm.
The overhang on the 3 is kind of neat looking, I don't, it's not really functional, so.
Yeah, it,
I'm with you on that one, Andy.
it definitely went a little extreme, and based on comments today, we're gonna take a look at pulling this back and what that does to the overall look and feel of this option. Getting rid of some of these large columns, as well as, really it would be pulled back halfway, if not more.
I don't like the rounded.
So you don't like rounding, you know?
I don't like,
You said you like the square edge more?
I like more, this look more modern, sleek, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, this is my preference.
Especially in the long run with the construction, you said we'd save some money if we do
Square.
straight square versus rounded.
So I'm kind of getting a gist that the round is not getting.
So the round yes,
Symmetric with the
Okay.
other building in front, the library, isn't it? The library is like,
Yeah, the library doesn't have any of the rounded
yeah,
edges,
so,
no.
And here's the building across the street, it's all linear too.
yeah, so,
Mhm.
I don't know.
The only really rounded buildings is Fitchburg Center's got some rounding on their buildings.
Will the outdoor patio or have access to the community room or community room access to the patios?
Yeah, so you'll see some of those windows turn into doors. So you'll have a door on either side. There's that movable partition to separate it into rooms of 50. So each of those rooms of 50 would have the door access out to the patio area. And we talked about whether that would be a secured patio or whether it would be open. So that's still up for debate.
So what is here, this one, is it the stair it's gonna be?
Yeah, so that's the
Okay.
main stair tower
Okay.
going from the garage level all the way up to the
Oh,
second
okay.
floor.
Kind of like the library staircase, you know, on the front
Okay.
side, you are gonna go up and down, that's kind of required by code. And it's a public staircase too.
What does it mean, Andy?
Well, public, so in terms of you can go into the lobby and go up to the lobby, the upper lobby, you're not gonna go through security.
Oh, okay.
But then to get into the office area, you gotta go through the secure doors.
There's no elevator in this building.
Yes.
Yeah,
There is?
Yes, we need an elevator.
Where's the elevator? Okay.
Yeah, the elevator is actually kind of centrally located
In front of you,
on the same axis as the entry doors, just
Okay.
at the back side of the lobby.
So the elevator is set up, so if you wanna go from the first lobby to the second lobby, you can do that in the elevator. But then if you wanna get into the secure side, you'd have to have an access
Yeah, so
badge.
that elevator will have doors on both sides. There will be the public-facing doors as well as the secure doors. So police will be able to fob and then press their button and go up second floor all the way down to lower level. Public will only be able to get on and go upstairs.
We are gonna have that room that we saw in the police station where to get into the cell, you need to go through.
Yes, yeah,
We're
where
gonna
we all
have
had to
that?
cram in, yes,
Yeah,
yep.
okay.
All right, I think we got it.
All right, so just gonna stop sharing that and start sharing this. Here's the next agenda item, I believe, is,
Project sustainability checklist and options.
yes. So this is actually a presentation that was given last night at the RCC meeting. The person who gave the presentation was unable to make this meeting, but I guess it was a short presentation that really, we got some good feedback on the direction we want to go with sustainability for this project. So we wanted to get your input as well, as far as what our options are. So it's really starting to look at kind of bigger goals for the city. What are our targets? And then looking at how we can maximize the use of the $2.5 million that we have earmarked in the budget for sustainability options. So initially, Phil Rupi from the city came up with this lead project checklist, and he kind of went through and said, all right, here's the things we could absolutely hit without having to do much at all. The yellow column was things that we could potentially hit with this building, and the red, he didn't feel like would be viable options for this particular building.
So it's not that we're necessarily designed towards LEED, we're using LEED as kind of the criteria to decide what, kind of guide us in sustainability.
Yeah, it's a really good place to start because it's something that everybody can understand without getting too far into the weeds. And it gives us a good framework to say, all right, here's what we're incorporating into this building versus, yeah, we want to be LEED Platinum, so we have to hit all these target numbers. So it's really more about the city's goals as opposed to having the plaque on the wall. So obviously, I don't need to go into detail here, but to David's point earlier, talking about having some of the native vegetation, what can we do with site stormwater as well as pavement? So looking at potential for having permeable pavers in some of the parking areas, not necessarily on the drive aisles, because we know there's some heavy equipment that may or may not have to use those drive aisles. We'll build those in as potential budget alternates to say, hey, if we do have the money in the budget, we can do some of these enhancements to what we're already providing as kind of the base level of sustainability for the building.
I'm sorry, the water feature that is in there, is that related to the area gets flooded when we have heavy rains?
Are you talking about
That
the
blue-
blue line?
Yeah.
That's the creek that's already on
The
site.
creek that it's, okay.
Yeah, so there are certain city, Dane County, DNR requirements that we have to meet in creating buffer zones outside of that creek so that we're not disturbing the soil from a certain distance or building from a certain distance.
If there is any wetland there?
Yeah,
Yes.
we did the wetland delineation earlier this year, we got that mapped out, it's hard to read on it, it's not a lot, there is some on there.
And what is the buffer for those wetlands? It's like a,
75 feet, I think.
75
We ran that by Deanna and talked to her about that already.
Yeah, so a lot of times what we'll do is come up with this kind of checklist of, all right, here's some different options. We're gonna work with Jared and his team to start assigning cost ranges to each of these options so that you as city leadership can make informed decisions on that 2.5 million, we wanted to go to optimizing energy performance. The next 3.4 there is renewable energy. So if you have goals as a city to say, we wanna wean ourselves off of fossil fuel by X date, and this building is gonna help us get there, we'll take a look at some of those options. We'll look at the exterior envelope of the building, so how much heat loss are you having?
Sorry.
So, how much heat loss you're having in the winter versus heat gain in the summer, trying to minimize that with a fully buttoned up exterior envelope. Getting further into some of the more specific things that don't necessarily have impact on the building, but have impact from a sustainability perspective. So we touched on it earlier, stormwater design can have a huge impact on sustainability. It's not necessarily something that we're gonna look at as far as the building is concerned, but the overall site. We know that the creek that already runs through the site, there's impacts further on down the line for the city as a whole. So those are some things we have to take a look at. And again, like I said, you'll start to see costs associated with these. But what we're going to ask is, are there some, right off the bat, high-level goals that you want to say, yeah, we absolutely want to do geothermal, we absolutely want to do permeable pavers, things like that, so that we can then help guide the discussion as we further develop the design. I believe that's the end.
Right, yeah, so the idea is that, two points, one is, that we already are doing sustainable design in the building, so really with this 2.5 million is just, what additional features do we wanna do? So when we get done with this exercise, idea is to take this back to RCC at their next meeting in November, and we're gonna hopefully, Gerald come with some costs for each of these items by then, so that we can kind of, because you can't do everything, right? So the idea is that way we can kind of, okay, we got this pot of money, where do we wanna put it as a city, where do we wanna? So if you got ideas, other things we should be looking at, let us
How
know.
do you come up with the $2.5 million?
That's through the budget process, we've kind of identified $2.5 million for additional sustainability features beyond what's kind of, so there's kind of a base level we've already got built in the building, and so this is just additional features to either cover geothermal, solar, those types of things. Things are kind of above and beyond what we normally would use in a building.
I think when we built the fire station, both of them, they have geothermal and solar, and I think we need to be consistent with our,
But it's possible you could just make provisions for solar and wait till you get grants to pay for the solar, and then maybe use that money on geothermal, for example. Some things you can't
Yeah,
change,
no, I
some
know.
things you can add later, like solar panels you can always add later on if you make
Okay.
provisions for them. Geothermal you can't add later on, that's,
No, I know you have.
so that has to be on day one, so.
Exterior envelope of the building would be another one where you have to build it the first time. You can't go back and retrofit additional insulation because then you're basically paying
And so
double for that.
once these numbers will help us define where do we wanna put it,
Yeah, because we know that pot of money is only so big, so where, as a city, where do you wanna use that money?
If you were
most
asking me
efficiently?
now, I would say I would like to see geothermal, solar, and all of that, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't know, because but if you say that is the option to install the solar later to,
that could give you
They'll
more
pay
money,
rent.
that could
It
give you
would be-
money,
yeah,
that
I
could give
know.
you money to put a better exterior.
yeah.
So that's the idea of doing this exercise, we
Yeah.
put numbers in, kind of say, well,
Mhm.
maybe we're better off just make provisions for solar, run the conduit up there, but maybe with that money that would go for solar to a better exterior envelope, for example.
Yeah, because it could turn out that you have these as your top goals, only to say, all right, you just ate up your 2.5 million with your top goals, but really, if you do these things down lower, those are gonna have just as big an impact, but they're also things you can't do later on.
But can you also do in this table, because I don't have a clue which are the more expensive options
Right,
here, you know what I mean? Like,
so
yeah.
you'll see, we're gonna come up with cost range.
Okay.
That's what's gonna help us pick out,
Oh, okay.
where do we spend,
Oh, okay,
where's
okay.
the best way to spend the money?
The other thing is, with the Inflation Reduction Act, there's a lot of, government qualify for some of the credit. I don't know how it's gonna work with government, what type of credit, but I think also we need to look forward to see if we can get some of those.
Yeah, Congress was actually nice enough this time to
Yeah.
include municipalities in the
Yeah.
tax credit, even though you're not paying tax. So
Exactly, but I don't know
it's
what.
basically a grant as
Yeah.
opposed to a tax credit.
So, yeah.
That was brought up to RCC last night, I'll have Phil take a look. at
Yeah, I
that
think we
some
need to
more.
look because there is plenty of money there that we can,
Yes. Yep, and it's only there for a limited time,
Yeah.
so. Any other sustainability questions?
The other thing that,
Okay.
the other thing that I would like to see when you do the landscaping, instead of having too much grass, maybe to have more native plants, or how to reduce that, that
Sure.
one is another sustainable way to, to reduce those costs, and also native plants, also they have a lot of benefit,
Yeah,
Water,
there's the environmental
data
benefit, and it's also less maintenance,
Yeah,
less water
water,
usage,
yeah.
all of that.
Less water, there's still maintenance with them, don't kid yourself.
No, I know.
But you're not out there mowing every week.
Yeah.
so that-
Right, but there is work to still be done, I mean,
Yes.
No, I
typically,
know.
for those to really work well, you need to hire like a company to come in and manage
Yeah,
those areas.
but we do it in other parts here.
It's not like you can just plant and walk away.
No, I know, I get it.
You can, it'll just get.
If I may add to it, in sustainability, buildings, even the city hall shuts down. It shuts down on the weekend, it shuts down on holidays. a police department, an essential function of city government, does not shut down. That's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So the energy that you have and it being an essential function has to be something that will withstand the energy. Like if you had a power outage, you need power in this building. You need the communication center to run and to be able to communicate these items. So whatever energy, when we're looking at prices, can it sustain the demand for a building that's being used 24/7? It's not something that you can plug in and charge. It's something that needs to be operating at all times.
So, and to further that point, because it's operating 24/7, it's a more expensive building to heat and cool, which means that every time you make a decision to impact the overall energy performance of the building, you're getting a sooner ROI on that investment than you would for a city hall or something else.
Yeah, it throws off the way, when you analyze the numbers, it throws it off because energy usage is different, as Al pointed out.
What about electric, for electric car chargers? Are you planning to install those ones too?
That's a question to be determined. What we'll do a lot of times is put the conduit in place in the walls. But if you're truly saying, hey, in less than 20 years, we're really gonna want a full electrified fleet, that's a conversation you'll have to have with the chief at that time, I'm sure.
No, but also
But that's something that you'll have to make that decision today so that you're sizing the electric coming into the building appropriately.
But I think that,
You would not want to set every stall to be.
No, I know.
Because it's just the cost of that.
no, I know, but eventually, I know that this is harder for the patrol car to have, to be electric, but all the other cars, you know what I mean?
The admin cars, right?
The admin car can be electric, this is the idea eventually to start thinking of that, and also for visitors, you know what I mean, or employee that they have electric car and they need to park there, you need to have some.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily building out the charging station on day one, but it's making sure that we
Yeah,
have
exactly,
the
yeah,
infrastructure in
Right, it's
place.
kind of like a
Yeah.
solar panel conversation,
yeah.
you just set it up, or you can find grants for it.
yeah.
I just feel as a citizen that I really don't have or don't know the information that I need to really have some input in this, other than, oh yes, solar panels, geothermal, rain garden, that kind of thing, which is very, with nothing compared to everything that's out there. And I know you guys tour or went to some other departments. Is there any department that you know that is using renewable energy and all those technology that's available now to make things more sustainable?
Yeah, we could come up with examples. So I think the biggest driver for Fitchburg is going to be first cost, which is not unlike many municipalities. It's really how much money do you have available to invest in these things that you feel are important. Some of them are going to save you money in the long run. Others are more just being stewards of the environment. So it's kind of balancing that line between, how much do we want to spend to save in the future versus how much do we want to spend to be leaders in that sustainability arena.
I had to go, guys, thank you very much, I really like the.
Okay, anything else on that one? Sustainability? All right, next one, discuss public information meeting.
So our next meeting is scheduled for November 15th, so, and then the overall kind of schedule, our goal is to take this to the planning commission on November 21st, and then go to the council for approval on November 28th. So at some point, we'd like to get some public input on it. So my question kind of is, should we do that as part of this, the next ad hoc meeting, open for public comment and have it at a different time of the day? Or do you see it as a separate public meeting that we have and just invite council and ad hoc to?
Solar panels.
My preference would be ad hoc committee and public meeting, but,
That's one meeting.
that's one meeting, and sometime in the evening, obviously, maximum participation. Andy?
That makes sense, yeah, as long as it's at a more accessible time.
Well, yeah,
Someone who's
yeah.
working and
Yeah.
has to take off work to be here.
Right. So probably like 6:30 at night, does that make sense? So then,
Would we do, I guess, sort of have the ad hoc meeting and then, I guess I'm trying to, are we thinking of like a kind of formal presentation of here's the building, here's what we're looking
yeah,
at?
then we do
Are
a
there
formal
comments?
presentation.
Or is it
and
more
then
of like a
comment.
charrette type where it's more interactive and?
It's gonna be more of a presentation at that point, because we've identified a lot of the elements already in the building, you know what I'm saying? I think we're more seeking public comment back on it.
Yeah, I mean, you as citizens, what would you expect from a process like this? Would you feel like you need to have input on what the building looks like, or would you just want to be informed on the decisions that have been made?
Thinking more the latter with the opportunity to comment.
Yeah, I think I agree.
I think so, that gives some, yeah, I agree.
Too open.
So we're looking at presentation with public comment.
Right. So. We have some other, when would you think you'd be available for that, Andy? Because we're getting overnight, we're doing some more meetings the week, following week.
I would have to look at my schedule, given the evening meeting, and I'd have to look at my calendar as well as talk to the team on when we're gonna have all of that information. I'm guessing that you're probably gonna want some of the budget information available for that meeting as well, so.
So probably the best thing for
We've
us
got
to
some
do
work
is.
to do after we do our work, so there's gonna be a little bit of a lag.
So I guess stay tuned for a poll. Either I or Valerie will send out a poll, figure out some way to poll it. Once we get the dates that we think might work, we'll send that out. But it'll probably be, because typically Tuesdays are council or planning commission, so it would probably be, Wednesday or Thursday. I wouldn't do it on a Friday night or weeknight. And Mondays, before it works is first and third Mondays, right? If I remember right.
This has changed.
Will they change on that? And those typically are about an hour long, right? I mean, you could do a 5:30 after that.
So
So
Paul,
Monday, Wednesdays, or a Thursday.
so what is gonna happen on the 15th again?
Well, that's a good question. If, we would probably end up not having ad hoc on the 15th then, because, presumably that week or the next week, we'd have a public meeting. So there's no reason to really have you guys meet
Yeah, well,
2 weeks in a
we'll
row.
look for that ideal date, and then based on the feedback today, we're gonna refine, everything that we've done. But really, the next time we'll meet with the committee will be at that public meeting. So is there an interest in seeing where we're at as far as materiality and all of that prior to then?
I don't personally.
I'm a little lost for this minute. I thought there's information that you were gonna get through you, I think, regarding the,
The sustainability, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking
And
about
that
the
information-
overall design though.
so we're just gonna be talking about the design at that meeting?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah,
No details about anything else?
Well, we might talk about sustainability at the ad hoc meeting too, I think.
yeah,
And that information, do we need it for that meeting or no?
I would say yes.
Yes,
And we're gonna have access to that before that meeting?
yes.
And do we have to make any suggestions or say anything?
Yeah,
That-
that's really the intent is
And that's gonna be at that meeting?
this committee, the RCC, and the council, that collectively we would get, what are the goals for that 2.5 million
For the,
for the city?
okay. And we'll have to do that before that meeting that you're talking about.
Well, no, it could be the same night, I think, couldn't it? Or do you think we ought to try to do it ahead of time?
We're really gonna need to know decisions on that if we wanna move forward with, I mean, if it's a site thing, we'll have to adjust the site plan. If it's a building thing, we'll have to adjust the building plan,
So will we have to meet before then?
In that case, we would need a meeting before then.
Yeah, and I don't know that we'll be able to do that. just based on where we're at with design versus what Jared's gonna need to price some of those things. Which is why I was saying, I don't know that the 28th is the right date
For the council.
for the council.
Which is December 12th then.
Just because there will be, either we're rushing things and, kind of fudging numbers and going, all right, here's my best guess in the time that you've given me. Or we're really coming up with a comprehensive schematic design package that they can then.
Well, how much time would you need to get that information?
Well, right now, we're still at a very conceptual stage as far as the exterior of the building, so I'm sure Jared's gonna wanna see a lot more on what those materials are and details there before they can price it, because he can put a price to what we've got right now, but it's gonna be really a best guess.
It's gonna be a lot of assumptions.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah, what's brick, what's metal, what's glass. So, there's still work on our end to do as far as the design. We're gonna need feedback from city staff, before we can finalize that design and then get it to Jared to then get all of those
There's no
numbers.
need to rush that. I mean, that's what I hear, that if we set up that time, we'll be rushing. Kind of.
Based on
Based on-
based on all of the different, feedback that we need from different groups, as well as the different groups that we need to meet with. I think some of those committee meetings we can still make happen, but when it comes to the final package with the final number, I think the 28th would be a rush.
Okay, what about, so for the public meeting, do you think at the public meeting, we need to have the sustainability items identified at that meeting, or can it be later?
I think that could be later. So I think that meeting could be when you as a committee are coming together and saying, here's our sustainability goals based on the pricing information that you've given us, as well as, what we wanna see as a city. And then use that to refine the schematic design to a point where it's complete, Jared can put his numbers to it, we can present it to council and say, here's where we're at the end of schematic design, both looks and price-wise.
So we're talking about 2 meetings then. The one where you will, us, and we'll have the information. And then the other meeting with the public.
Yeah, so those will happen on the same date.
I think you're gonna have separate dates, I think
I
we're saying.
thought it was separate days.
I guess I'm not following.
Yeah, well, so we go to the public, we need to know the sustainability items or not.
You tell me. My understanding of that meeting was that we were presenting them the design and getting feedback on the design.
Yeah, so that meeting, we had to get designed, then would you try to do that? And then come back to the committee the second time with all sustainability items, or you're trying to just delay the whole thing till we all together?
No, I'm saying at that, whatever date we choose in November for the next committee meeting, as well as the public meeting, those can happen concurrently.
All right,
And at that committee meeting, we discuss the sustainability goals, so that, Pepper and FGM can get on the same page as far as what costs we're showing for each of those different items in that chart, so that you can then review those and make your decisions, so that at that meeting, you say, these are our 5 goals.
so we go to the public, we're not gonna be able to tell them whether you have geothermal
Right.
or solar at that point. We just have to tell them we're still looking at those.
I guess, is that a priority for that public meeting?
I think what's your thoughts on the priority of the public meeting? I think it's more the aesthetics of the building.
Exactly, yeah, I don't think sustainability is gonna be the.
That's what I thought. I thought the sustainability thing would be more through the committees as opposed to just public input.
But then I think knowing a lot of people in Fitchburg have this, environmental stuff, I think that was gonna come up. The more complete information that we could have for that meeting, I think would be better. I mean, you're talking about the committee meeting, and we'll go over those reports in that X day. And that same day, we're not gonna be making any decisions or recommendations, we're just gonna be getting information from you about how the $2 million.
No, we're gonna have that information to you in advance of that meeting so that you can then make your decisions at that meeting or in advance of that meeting.
At the committee meeting.
Yeah.
Let's say it's gonna be at what? he needs time to get here, he works.
Oh, yeah, the public meeting will be at 6:30 tonight, so we
Right.
probably do this before
The
or after
committee
that.
meeting,
And at least I guess we're getting public feedback too, if we say we're doing
Right.
sustainable features.
Well, we could, if you think at the time of the public meeting, you'd have sustainability costs figured out.
We'll have that whole chart filled out
We
with
could, maybe,
the high and
maybe
low
we could
costs,
just,
but it won't be that the city has decided that
no,
It
maybe,
won't be
maybe we
decisions.
get public comment on it.
that actually might be better,
Better.
but then you guys can make a more
Yeah,
informed
that way,
decision.
maybe at the public meeting, we say, maybe have a little sticker survey, kind of weigh in on
Right.
what they
And
think
then
is.
after that, we go back to the RCC. They make their recommendations, hopefully they align with your recommendations.
Right.
And then we bring all of that to council.
So basically, right now, what we need is decide the time that you need to give us that information, and then we'll decide on the date.
Right.
So if you say a month and a half, then we'll know.
So Jared, are you able to assign costs to that list without more narrative?
I would say at this time, I mean, we're gonna need some more information, the price, just because, I mean, I briefly, that's the thing Brian sent out Friday, right? But it's just a one-line description, increase solar to 75% or something, right? I mean, it's gonna be tough to give accurate numbers just based on,
Yeah, so you're gonna need input from the engineering team as well.
well, in kind of the baseline
Yeah.
mechanical system,
Yeah.
right?
And
What our actual power is, and then we can price
Yeah,
that,
so
and
then
then
you
give you
price
an
it off of
increase.
that baseline to say,
Yeah, exactly.
we're doing this no matter what. This enhanced system will be an increased cost of X.
Right, you wanna add so many KWs of solar, this is your add to the base job.
So I think you have to, and
So how much time do you need?
Trevor on me offline,
I
we're
need-
gonna try to figure out. And then-
Yeah, cause
Once-
I'm
once
gonna
we
need
do the
to
baseline.
get input from our
Right, now there's no
consultant as well.
baseline compared to, so what I'm saying, I need that baseline and then probably give me 2 weeks, it would be plenty,
Oh,
but we need the baseline first.
I guess, what are we trying to get out of having the sustainability numbers from the public? I mean, are they gonna say yay, nay, or, I mean, what are we trying to get out of it?
well, we just said that if we have that information at that meeting, you'll get feedback from the public on that. It doesn't have to be final stuff, but you get that information, and then we'll have more information to make a decision. So he says he needs 2 weeks, but you need that baseline.
He needs 2 weeks from the time we were able to get him that information. And I
Right.
can't tell you how long that's gonna be because I need to ask my engineering consultants how long they'll need to put their package together. So that could be,
Depending on them.
that could be 4 weeks, it could be 8 weeks, I don't know.
Wow, okay.
I think at least for the public hearing, if, on the sustainability, if people say, my concern is stormwater and water quality versus energy, like, I think they can at least give you some broad parameters to help guide our
So
decisions.
just leave the specifics out then, no
Yeah, that's-
specifics for that meeting.
Yeah, that's where I'm going with that.
But then he's talking
Yeah,
about
'cause
meeting that
they're
day.
not making the decision, they're just saying, here's what I'm passionate about, here's what I feel like is important in this building. Ultimately, the decision's gonna be you, the RCC, and the council.
Well,
Good.
no, I'm just saying the way, I'm thinking if I think they're gonna have, the public's gonna have specific questions. And you're saying, we don't need to have, because that pricing thing of the sustainability, we don't necessarily need that because we're not gonna be making any decisions on that day.
Well, I think the sooner you can make the decision, the better, because then that allows us to design to those decisions as opposed to getting down the road and having to backtrack.
And we're saying we don't need to make decisions when we have that meeting.
That's the way I'm thinking about it. I just don't know what is, if we had the numbers, I mean, what are we expecting for the public to say? That's too expensive or what? I mean, instead of having a general idea of where we're going with this, along with the sustainability goals.
If you're just asking the
Back to
public for
square
general
one.
concepts, you don't have the numbers, that means that the ad hoc's gonna meet one more time then, once you get the numbers. That's really the difference. You can either go to the public kind of early in the process, say generally these are the, we have solar, geothermal, or stormwater, whatever, which are priorities, without any numbers, and then ad hoc would meet later on once we got those numbers. Or we do it, wait till we get it all together.
Well, that's gonna be another meeting, then I say. So let's
That's
wait
gonna be
a bit.
another meeting, so we'll have
Just
another
wait,
meeting.
just wait on the public
Yeah.
meeting till you get the numbers.
Right, yeah.
So you need to let us know when you get the numbers out to figure out.
Yeah.
We'll have to send out some kind of poll, once you get that figured out, you need to use your team, and including our Jared, Pepper, and then figure out what that schedule is, and we'll have to send out a poll to the work group, see what nights work.